We are live, and let me share my screen with you all. Just a bit. A bit more. No. So good morning to everyone. Today is 30th of September 2023. Let's have another wonderful day of study. Let me start with a quick prayer. Master Jesus, here we are together once more in this humble study, learning through the effort of our loved Kardec what he brought to us through the Medium's book, giving us knowledge of what we are and how to be in light of mediumship. Be with us today and always. So be it.
Amen.
So, last weekend we have started the chapter 200, but as we have finished in the first sentence, I will stop here and restart again. The development of mediumship. Before we start to read and discuss what is brought to us by Kardec, I'd like to share with you something that the Spiritist movement is, depending on who you ask. And why I'm saying that, because there's not a consensus about how we should develop a mediumship. We have the guidelines from Kardec, but after Kardec, many people came and they make their own rules, if I may say like that. And sometimes those rules ignore some of Kardec's teachings at basis. For example, mediumship is organic, so it will happen if we like or not. It will happen if we are 90 years old or 6 years old. It is organic. And sometimes we are not prepared to handle something that goes a bit beyond or what we want to believe. Likewise, there's someone listening to music just now. Would it be possible to switch off your mic? Thank you very much. And if I lost a little bit, to be honest, the music was very nice. So there are people that believe that we must study 10 years. I'm a bit exaggerated. It's only 8 years. And before we start to believe we are allowed to go into a mediumship meeting. I never saw that in Kardec either. There are people that believe that one Spiritist center should have one mediumship meeting, and that's it. And the frequency depends on the group. Sometimes it's every week, sometimes once a month. And if we are all mediums, if it is organic, if our Spiritist center have like 100 people, having one meeting that can only contemplate 12, 15 people tops, Are we doing what we're supposed to do with the mediumship after we learn how to do? So I'm just throwing some comments on the wind. So I want you to think by yourselves to see what you think is correct or not. Another point that I would like to bring to you is charity. And then some people are thinking what he means about charity. Mediumship is to practice charity, period. There's no other understanding, in my view. Mediumship is to practice charity. If mediumship and charity have their hands tied, means that I need to prepare to help who is finding mediumship. I need to be able to give the support to those who are finding themselves now with this new thing, mediumship. I'm a medium, so now what should I do? Where should I go? And charity, again, because if the product of your mediumship is not charity, and when I mean charity, I'm not mean material charity, I mean moral charity, charity for the spirits, charity for the people that need spiritual support, charity in the very moral sense. I should reevaluate what I'm doing with my mediumship. All right. So I just want to throw a few things on the wind before we start. As this topic, development of mediumship, I think is very important. I think we should make mediumship as knowledge accessible to everyone, accessible to all ages. I'm not meaning a baby of 2 years old, of course not. But if we're talking about someone with 12, 13, 15 years old, we have great results when they start to ask questions that we are ashamed to ask. So development of mediumship, I think we all need to see that with utmost care. Because if you are here today, that's what we're seeking for ourselves, right? So why not allow that to everyone that wanted to have access to this information? So I'm talking too much already. So let me go back to the test 200. We are here particularly addressing writing mediumship because this is the most widespread kind, and also because it is at the same time the simplest and most convenient, and the one that provides the most satisfactory and complete results. Is the writing mediumship still widespread? Yes, it's still widespread. Is the most widespread? Today, I don't know anymore. I think there's a lot of mediums that don't write anymore and just speaks, give their voices to the spirits. So I don't know if it is the most widespread. Provide satisfactory and complete results. Today, I think many types of mediumships provide these satisfactory results. Two of them, today, you can have a register to evaluate afterwards the content, the quality. If it's written, you can evaluate the way it's written, you can evaluate the message, the content, even the words, sometimes the writing itself, because we had studies made on Chico Xavier, and they were able to prove with specialist technicians in writing that the writing that was going through Chico Xavier was exactly the same writing of the person when was alive, when was incarnated. So yes, there are ways to consult and to, how can I say that? To validate the message, the writing message. Nowadays, with the equipment we have as well, the spoken message can be recorded easily. Almost every phone on earth have this ability to record a message nowadays. You can hear many times as you need. You can identify the pattern of what have been spoken. You can identify the content. You can identify even the voice, depending on the medium, because sometimes the voice of the medium changes, and the voice of the medium can get very close to the voice of the person that was incarnated at the time. So we have more means nowadays than we had in the past, right? Furthermore, it is one of the most sought after. At present, unfortunately, there is still no means of diagnosing, even roughly, those who possess this faculty. Can I diagnose someone that is a medium? Sometimes we have like a feeling. Normally, a medium is able to recognize another medium, feel like the spider sense, you know, from Spider-Man. When you see, oh, this person has something in common with me, or there is something there, there's a potential there. But diagnose, I don't think is possible. What we can do is through exercises, through serious practice, mediumship practices, we are able to identify the medium characteristics over a period of time. For example, when we started our mediumship here, we barely knew each other. We have no idea who could write, who could speak, who could listen, who could see. We had no idea. But after a period of time, then we start to see, Pablo is more like the person that is able to hear and write. Cherry is more like the person that speaks more freely. Liz don't have anything. And that doesn't mean that Liz is not a medium. It means that today, she's not writing, she's not listening, she's not seeing anything. In 1 year time, things may be different because the time is different to everyone. Sometimes someone in the first meeting start to have some sensations. Sometimes, and I met people that stay for like 20 years in the mediumship meeting and thought he was not a medium. One day, he started to speak. So it's not a rule. It's not a rule. So diagnosis a medium or diagnosis anything related to the spiritual world has to be taken carefully. We should not rush into conclusions. The physical signs that some take as indications are uncertain, and we may find it in children, old people, men and women. Whatever their temperament, health status, or degree of intellectual and moral development may be. There is only one way to ascertain the existence: experimentation. Oh, I swear I didn't read the test, and I think Kardec is agreeing what we said so far, right? Experimentation is the key. And I remember that the first mediumship meeting that I was part of, I was 15 years old at the time, and the coordinator of the meeting, he used to say that that meeting was an experimentation mediumship meeting. And until 30 years later, he was saying, experimentation, mediumship meeting. Now, the coordinator, he's 97 years old. And in the last 8 years, he stopped saying that the meeting was experimentation meeting. That is to give you an idea of time length. Sometimes we think we are medium for 12 months and we are superb. We know everything. We are ready. And this person that, in my opinion, he was very experienced with mediumship. He considered the mediumship he was coordinating for 40 years-ish as experimentation mediumship meeting. He was not in a rush. So we should not be in a rush either. All mediumship meetings that we are at the moment, at least I am, we are learning. And we have a long way to go. So all of us that we are here, that have any participation or mediumship, do not forget, we are learning, all right? As we have already seen, writing may be obtained by using baskets and planchettes, or directly by hand. Receiving messages by baskets or planchettes was definitely not easy at all. And the other day I heard Charles speaking about a poet that was sending a message, and at that time was by typology. That was to get a simple sentence, probably the person had to work like 3 hours to get a simple sentence. That was definitely not easy, right? Nowadays, it's by hand, right? But recently, I acquired a book from our brothers spiritualists, and it seems they're still using those methods. And there's nothing wrong using those methods, but will give more work. That's all. And also, someone mentioned to me the other day, I don't remember whom, that perhaps it is a good way to know if we have a mediumship or not. Because if we start to have messages through a table, that is definitely not common, and that will get our attention. And then we probably will try to find information to explain to us what it is. Since his last method is the easiest and the only one used nowadays, it is the one we recommend. The process is quite simple, consisting merely in taking a pencil and paper and putting oneself in a writing position. No other preparation is needed. Nonetheless, several recommendations are indispensable to obtaining a good result. Guys, you can stop me anytime if you want to say anything or ask anything, okay? As for the physical conditions, we recommended avoiding anything that might impede the free movement of the hand. It is preferable that it is not entirely rest upon the paper. The point of the pencil should maintain enough contact to write, but not so much as to offer any resistance. All these precautions are of no import. However, when a medium begins to write fluently, for them, no obstacle at all can deter the hand. They are only preliminaries for the beginner. And something came to my mind here that go Pablo.
Hi, Guilherme. I was thinking about when you were talking about like experimentation. So we know that we should, take precautions to, you know, to do it in the right way. So would that be a guide of like how to ask for this protection, or how to be assured that you are doing it properly? Because, you know, if you're not sure if you are a medium, or if you're not able to join a spiritist center or something like that, so would it be okay just taking precautions yourself to try it on your own, or wouldn't that be advisable? Would it be always advisable only to do it in a protected environment, you know, the spiritist center, or with a group that already has some experience in that sense?
I will give you two answers, Pablo. The first one, the conservative answer. It's always better to start something we don't know with someone that does know. Right? It's like if for the first time ever you sit behind the wheel on a car and try to drive, you're taking chances. So that's a conservative answer, right? But we have to evaluate scenario by scenario. If we're talking about Brazil, you have a spirit center on every neighborhood, basically. So just walk, go there, knock on the door, and you get some support. Or at least you should get some support. If we are here, where we are, it's not straightforward, right? But nowadays, with the use of internet, it's becoming easier, right? How many of us, we started having this experimentation after we discovered the online method, right? So it's also possible nowadays. But even like that, there are resistances. So it may not so simple yet to find where to find this kind of support. But mediumship, spiritism, is with the spirits. So I don't feel comfortable to say to someone, do not do something if your benefactor that you know for 10 years, your guardian angel, is telling you, let's do an exercise here with us. Because spiritism is from the spiritual world to us, not the other way around. Let me ask you one thing. You're very comfortable in the spiritual environment, in the spiritist environment with the spirits, you have no problem. You see this very same spirit giving you good advices, pushing you in the right direction since you were a boy. Now that you are like 30s, he's coming to you. I would like to write something through you. You have mediumship and it's time to start. What would you do if you have no one to ask for help or nowhere to go? So I am not going to tell you don't do it, because it depends on scenarios, depends on many things. I will recommend you always the conservative answer, because it will be better, it will be safer for you. But there are cases by cases. And people, is he recommending everyone to do? No, I'm not recommending anything. I'm not refusing this as possibility. Likewise, we hear a lot on the Spiritist movement. We should not get any mediumship related action in our homes. I ask you why? Can you tell me, based on Kardec, why? Do you know how most, if not all, Spiritist Center started? Don't you? Okay then. So we have no reason to be afraid, but we have to be careful. We have to be attentive. We need to study. If you want to go in the mediumship avenue, you have to study. You have to change yourself, some of your preferences, if I may say like that. And then your home become a Spiritist center. Because imagine if everyone they started to have studies, mediumship meetings at home, and today they have a Spiritist center, if they were afraid to do so. Right? Hi, Liz.
Hi. It just reminded me, you saying about not having Spiritist meetings at home, and then talking about a bit how centers start. Then we have the gospel at home that is advised to everybody to do. This is, in other words, inviting good spirits to your house anyway. So, if we think like that.
Yeah.
And another thought is, I know everyone thinks a lot when think about mediumship. They think about obsessions and dangerous situations, and they try to put all sorts of things to support people, prevent, but some sort of methodology. Yes, as you said many times, many of them are so restrictive, like you have to do a degree, then master's degree, then doctorate to be able to begin to do anything in mediumship. But the bottom line for me is, doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what method you do, the medium themselves, the medium, him or herself, is the only person responsible for their own safety, because as a medium, we all have to be aware that we have to continue to do this self-study, self-enlightening journey, trying to better ourselves in the best way that we can. And we know by reading Kardec and many other authors that this is the only way for us to be able to have, to be closer and closer to what is good, to be closer and closer to what Jesus, showed us, the correct way to be. And this connection with the divine, this connection with God, you can't put method to it because it's very, very private. It's very individual. So I know people want to try to create something safe and a methodology and etc. But at the end of the day, is the medium's responsibility. And that there is no methodology that is going to influence you. You can have the greatest thing in a Spiritist center, and you have one medium that can, ruin everything for him or herself, put in danger to him or herself practice mediumship.
You spoke about so many things, and I made a note of some, so we can comment, okay? Do or not to do. I never said to do, and I never said not to do. I said there are situations and situations. For example, we do our virtual mediumship meeting. If you can do it presential, go for it. It's beautiful. But if you cannot, the virtual is a safe method, and as we know, has a good result. So do or not to do is something very private. And if you study in depth, if you become familiar with the spiritual world, you will find your own answer. Do or not to do, right? Most of the spiritist center, as we know, are not profitable centers. We don't buy a plot of land, we don't build a building, and then we open a center. It's not like that. Normally, we use the space that we have available to do so. And quite often is my garage, is my spare room, is somewhere we can sit among friends. Normally, it starts with this gospel at home. Then with a study of some specifics, could be the gospel, could be Genesis, could be Medium's book, could be anything. And through those events, you may have a message. When you don't expect, bang, someone get a message. Here we go. Your first mediumship meeting in your home. And at that time, what should I do? Yes, there are some points we need to be careful of. Because as you rightly said, we define the spirits that are around us. If you are a good person, if you do what you must do, you have good spirits around you. But if you do the opposite, like if you're playing just for sake of having fun to see if there is any spirit in your home, don't do it. You don't know what you will find, you know. So I have a hand here from Solomon. Let him speak and then I'll continue. Hi, Sol.
Hi, I just wondered, has anyone within Spiritism ever taken it from another angle and said we could develop mediumship in people by using communication from two incarnates? In other words, I could send you a message, Guilherme, and, you know, write it down, and it could be agreed, let's say, in this group. And then, because you're new to mediumship, you know, we would all know the message, and we could take turns with doing this, and then see, you know, did you pick up the message? Because then it would be clear there was a message being sent, and then it would just be a question of, you know, was the message you know, received? Because otherwise we don't know what is the original message, you know, for the student.
I hear what you're saying. So there are some scientific studies about this type of exercise, right? I wouldn't do that on the spiritist environment, because that is you send message to me, and then we may talk about telepathy and sensibilities and a few other things. And that's not, I would not see that as a way to start to identify if I'm a medium or not.
But right. Isn't the mechanism the same? Because isn't a spirit using, you know, similar methods?
I don't see as the same. I see your spirit send me a message to my spirit. And so far we are both incarnated, I hope.
I mean, I mention this because Uri Geller, you know, did an experiment once in a national newspaper, you know, saying, I'm going to send at 8 o'clock tomorrow or whatever, I'm going to send a message and see how many people can pick up my message. And, you know, I thought, okay, I try this, you know, before I was doing mediumship. And I got it right, but then I tore it up and thought, no, I'm just guessing, because it was a Star of David. And I thought, well, I know the guy's Jewish, so probably I'm just making it up. So I've tore it in the bin. And then the next, I don't know, a day or two, they published the result and said, yes, it was a Star of David. And many people, you know, wrote in or whatever to say they got this image being sent. So, you know, for me, I realized it's, you know, that's for me a type of mediumship, because I'm picking up something being sent, but it's just from him to me. So I don't see, that, because it's from his spirit to my spirit, because that's how I'm picking up that image, is it not? Or is it just, you think it's more to do with telepathy?
I think it's more down to telepathy, right? And I don't think telepathy is listed as a mediumship. I think it's a sensibility, right? Not everyone will be able to do this exercise. Some people who don't get anything, and some people will, right? And now it's me speaking. Yeah, I see that as a sensibility on your organism, on your physical organism, that can be led to other activities related to mediumship. But when we're talking about mediumship, is you receiving a message directly from one spirit, discarnated spirit, through writing, speaking, or else, right? So I would not consider this as a method of development.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, I mean, it's coming to your mind. So that's why I suddenly thought it's quite similar, you know what I mean? Because they used to say it's coming to, directly to your hand and your hand moving, but then, they said, no, actually it's coming through your mind. And then your mind will then be telling you what to write,
At the moment, I don't share the same point of view. I possibly need to study more about telepathy, about how it works, right? But nevertheless, I would not say to anyone, start by there to see if you're a medium. I wouldn't say that. I learn in a different way.
No, it was more curiosity that, had they ever experimented with that, because that would be it'd be easier, you know what I mean? Because people can argue what was the original message. But if you know the original message, you know what I mean, then it would be easier.
Maybe, but people that don't want to believe, so they will argue anyway. Even
no, that's
if
true,
you get the same message, they will argue. So
that's true.
I would not start by there.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, hi, Denise, go on.
Hi, I have a question. I mean, we know that in a mediumship meeting, like in a Saint Spirit, normally the spirits come and they prepare the ambient before the mediumship starts. If you do at home or even like online, I mean, people normally share the house. So even though you can prepare yourself, there's other people with other kinds of like vibration around you. How does that would affect a mediumship meeting?
Let me ask you some questions first.
Mm-hmm.
On the mediumship, on the Spirit Center, do you have only the mediumship group, or do you have neighbors? Do you have people on the center doing other activities? How does it work for you? Because the group that I am used to, we had people in that room having mediumship meeting, and when we had other activities happening. So what I'm trying to say is that we are never alone. We have other people, even in the vicinity or the neighborhood, they're there. They're there as well. Same as you have in your home, right?
Mm-hmm.
The point of safety, of course, I always try to be in a calm environment. If I have people playing football behind me or watching a game or listening to music, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. But if I am in my room, in my bedroom, like I am right now, and that time of the day, my family knows that I'll be there doing something. They don't even know what it is, but they know I'll be doing something. So they respect that time. And the most important is yourself. Because if you're not equilibrated, if you're not balanced, if you're not well, if you're drunk, if you're on the drugs, it doesn't matter if you are in a Spirit Center face-to-face, or if you are a virtual at home or else. The problem is you. And so many people say, oh, I don't want to bring spirits to my home.
Okay.
You don't bring spirits to your home because of the mediumship meeting. You may do at home. You select by your thoughts, by your actions, by your choices, the kind of spirits you are inviting to be around you 24/7. I heard many times people, oh, I just want to do one leadership meeting per month because I don't want to bring spirits to my home. At that time, there was not even virtual, was not even Zoom, nothing like that. It was a face-to-face scenario. Because the person in his mind thought that I'll leave all the spirits on the spirit center. And then when I leave the spirit center, I can do everything I like to do. Drink, smoke, drugs, you name it. And then I go home. What do you think you're taking home?
Your friends.
Exactly. So people, of course, if your home is a totally mess, when I mean mess, is spiritually a mess. If you are spiritually a mess, don't go there. Because you need first to change.
Mhm.
After you perform this change, then things become possible and safe.
Thank you.
All right. So let me go back to just a minute. Go ahead. I just to go back to the subject, some of the subjects being brought by Liz. Gospel at home. We were saying that the gospel at home was one of the ways that many spiritist groups started, right? It's not mandatory per se, but is highly recommended that anyone that does have an activity with the spiritual realm, if I can say like that, to do the gospel at home. Because at that moment, you are inviting to your place good spirits. And the gospel at home is not once every 6 months. It's not like that. It's every week, at the same time, on the same day. It's a commitment you have. Because when you decide to have that, your spiritual friends, they also start to have that as an appointment every day of the week, right? So that's a way that you can improve your home environment and improve yourself. Right? When Lisa was speaking about safety, about how to start, do or not to do, of course, there's a subject that comes to our mind, obsession. We're all afraid about being obsessed, right? We don't want to be obsessed, right? Can we be obsessed because we're doing something at home? No less, no more than do anything on the spirit center or else. What defines this process is our choices, our thoughts, our actions. Even when I am the very good boy nowadays, if in my previous life I left something without some closure, I may face some situation that I have to find closure now. It's not because I'm in the spirit center or I'm doing something at home or I'm not doing anything at all. It's something that I left outstanding that I have to fix now. I think that if we truly want to do something, if we truly understand the reason why we want to do, if we study, if we are really not devoted would not be the right name. If we are committed to that, we'll have the right support from the spiritual world. And it's down to the individual, right? It's down to the individual. So let me go ahead a little bit more. It does not matter whether a pen or a pencil is used. I remember something. It does not matter, but I remember that the mediums write with the pencil. The line was so thin that sometimes it was difficult to identify what the writing was. and we swapped pencils for pen many years later, and yeah, does not make any difference, right? But it will only work for those who are fully developed and who write calmly. How can you be developed if you do not try, right? So when you started to practice psychography, sometimes you just write scribbles. Sometimes you just have a line. Sometimes you just have one letter. Sometimes you receive something that no one can understand because it's not a language. It's just rubbish, basically. But that's the way we start to prepare the channels, the mediumship channels we all have to further work. I don't know if you know, but even Chico Xavier, I think he received message for like 20 years or so. And then only after that period that Emmanuel, his benefactor, says to him, you throw everything in the bin now, and now we'll start to work. So all those years he was receiving message was just a training, just to an apprenticeship, if you like. And none of us are different than that. We will start receiving messages that are unreliable, that make no sense at all, maybe just scribbles, like. But if we continue practicing, then we will achieve a good level of information. There are mediums who write so quickly that using a pen would be nearly impossible, or at least very inconvenient. I have a friend that is a medium that every time when he receives a message in writing, I need to ask him to translate because I don't understand a single word. But that's the way he writes anyway. It's not because he's writing under a spirit influence. That's the way he writes. I'm not able to read what he writes anyway, right? So it depends, case by case. The same applies when we writing is jerky or irregular, or when dealing with violent spirits who tap the point and break it, tearing the paper. The desire of all aspirants to mediumship is, of course, to be able to converse with the spirits of loved ones. But any impatience must be moderated because communication with a particular spirit nearly always presents physical difficulties that render doing so impossible for the novice. Question for you. When you start to have a mediumship, the goal was to speak to someone you knew, someone you missed? Maybe, I don't know. In order for a spirit to be able to communicate, there must be between it and the medium certain fluidic combinations, which are not always immediately established. Mediumship is organic, and to have a mediumship phenomena, you need to have the fluid of the spirit and the fluid of the medium talking together. If you don't have that, it will be very difficult, very difficult. And even those, let's say I want to get a message from my benefactor, sometimes it takes a long time before you have that possibility, because he's your benefactor, your guardian angel, whatever. It doesn't mean that you have what it takes to get a message from him. So it is through practice, through time, through exercise, that some of those things may happen. Pay attention to what I'm saying. May happen, all right? Only to the degree that his or her mediumship develops, will the medium little by little acquire the aptitude needed to communicate with the first spirit who presents itself at the time. As we know, in a mediumship meeting, we have quite often the spirits brought to us, to be nearby us, hours before the meeting, sometimes days before the meeting. It's like when we go to somewhere, we feel uncomfortable because we don't know anyone. And after a period of time, we start to feel, yeah, that person is all right. I can talk to him. We need to be acquainted, if you like. However, it could also be that the longing for spirit is not a favorable condition to communicate it, in spite of actually being present, or that it is neither able nor permitted to respond to the evocation. Once again, we have that word evocation. Would I recommend to do an evocation? No, I would not. And we need to understand the evocation. Putting a name in a paper is already an evocation. I always have an argument with my father in regards to names and remember people that are gone. And I used to say to my father, don't call them that often. Don't call them that often. Because, oh, my friends that passed away 20 years ago, that person that passed away, blah, blah, blah. We have no idea where they are, what they're doing, the status they are. And by the time I'm started thinking about someone, it's already an evocation. It's already an evocation. So we need to be careful. Of course, it's natural to remember people that are gone, but try not to make that a heavily exercise every day, every week, you know. Let them continue their path and you continue yours. For example, another good example of evocation, I think I spoke about that here already. We like to give names to put on a mediumship meeting. This is an evocation. This is an evocation, even if you don't know. I am in the spiritist meeting. I'm sitting in a chair right now, and I'm thinking heavily about that person because I've spoken to that person the whole week. That person has a problem, blah, blah, blah. I may be inviting spirits that are around that person to be in the meeting. So we need to understand that word evocation. And if you want to do evocation per se in a meeting, as Kardec did, it's better ask first the benefactor of the meeting if would be possible and beneficial to invite this spirit to the meeting. If the spiritual group that organizes the meetings decide to bring one spirit because we are thinking about him, because we put a name on the list or whatever, that's another thing. They're already doing that trial, like they are doing the evaluations and bringing the spirit or not. But when we really want to do an evocation per se, it's better to do that with the validation from the spiritual group. Thus, it is best if in the beginning, the medium refrains from evoking a particular spirit to the exclusion of any other, since fluidic relations often cannot be very easily established between the two, no matter how much affinity there might be. Consequently, before thinking about receiving communications from this or that spirit, it is first necessary to develop the faculty by making a generalized evocation, and especially by addressing one's guardian angel. If some of you are already familiar with the way we do our mediumship meetings, have you seen us doing any evocation per se? We don't. Why? Is wrong to do? No, it's not wrong to do, but what do you want to achieve doing that? What is the benefit? What is the result? We have always to ask those questions. There are no sacramental formulas. However, claims to recite a formula that draws a spirit may be firmly branded as an impostor, since formulas means nothing to spirits. Nevertheless, the evocation must always be made in God's name. We may begin an evocation of a spirit by using the following phrases or similar ones. I pray that Almighty God will allow a good spirit to communicate with me by causing me to write. I also pray to my guardian angel to assist me and protect me from evil spirits. He says that we should not have a formula, but he's giving us a formula already, nevertheless. So, I prefer to trust, to rely on the spiritual organizations of the mediumship instead of me trying to coordinate a meeting from this end. As I said, even today here, Spiritism is working with the spirits, and Spiritism quite often comes from the spiritual world to us. So when we are in a mediumship meeting, we had a team that does organize things on that side that we are, but we also have a team organizing things from the other side. And they have a clear vision of what would be better or not for that meeting, better than we do. So I prefer to rely on their coordination, and if they want to bring a spirit, so be it. All right. Then we wait for a spirit to manifest itself by causing us to write something. It could be that the spirit of whom we had hoped for will, in fact, manifest itself, or it could be an unknown one, or even our guardian angel. Could be any spirit. Could be even any spirit telling you that I am the guy you call and I'm not. In any case, it will usually identify itself by writing its name. This brings up the problem of identity, a problem that requires much experience to deal with, because there are few novices who are not exposed to the possibility of being fooled. We shall soon address this issue in the special chapter. Hi, Paula.
Hi, Guilherme. I just wanted to say that it's my opinion, what I'm saying, that when you evoke a spirit, even if this life you've had a really a wonderful experience with them, and there isn't that many bad memories of that person, when you evoke them, you may evoke something from the past, from when it wasn't like that. So the danger of evoking spirits is that you don't bring one thing alone. You bring whatever still need to reach a balance between both of you if you haven't got there yet. So it could work both ways. If you're in balance and all the debts being paid between each other, there's respect, then obviously they can come and develop work. But if there is anything left that's still not paid off, and there is debt in either one or the other sides, you open up a gateway for other spirits that might have been linked to that bad debt experience from maybe 3-4 past lives ago, linked consciously or unconsciously to the raising up experience.
I would say it's possible, but I don't know. I know that when you think about someone, you're also thinking about those who are around this someone. If you are evoking one spirit, you are also evoking something that he will bring with him, his own status. That's why I don't encourage people to do so, If I have to evoke someone, I will, but with some measures in place. And the measures are, I'm fairly familiar with the benefactors of the meeting I'm working with. I'm able to recognize them. I will ask them before anything. Depending on the answer they will give to me, we'll do. Depending on the answer they will give to me, it's better not to. Because why I want to evoke someone? When I want to evoke someone means that I'm more interested in what I want than what is the true purpose of a mediumship meeting. That is charity. Charity means help spirits without knowing who they are, where they come from, what they need. We find at that moment. So I prefer this type of mediumship. Working with charity. Helping spirits that are suffering, they are in need. And the friends from the other side, they know better who needs more, not me. So for a specific tasks, maybe. But for a day-to-day mediumship meeting, I would not go in that avenue. Not saying it's wrong, I'm saying I would not go in that avenue, right? So we are finishing our study for today. Let's do a quick prayer to wrap up. My spiritual friends, grateful we are for your presence and your support in our study. Be with us through the day, through our week, always giving us good thoughts, helping us to change ourselves, to be a better person, day after day. Like that, our contact will be better, will be easier. Be with us today and always. So be it. Well, I wish you all a very pleasant weekend, a wonderful week, and I'm looking forward to see you again in a week's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.